The rain hammered against my skin like tiny needles, each drop a reminder that I was still here, still breathing, still existing in this nightmare. The bus stop offered no shelter, just a rusted metal frame and a shattered plastic panel that did nothing to keep out the cold November wind. My clothes clung to my body, heavy and suffocating, while my suitcase lay toppled on its side in a puddle, its broken wheels spinning uselessly. I couldn't stop shaking, not from the cold, though my fingers had gone numb 20 minutes ago, not from the rain that plastered my hair to my cheeks and neck. I shook because 3 hours ago I had a husband. 3 hours ago I had a home. 3 hours ago I believed the lie that I mattered to someone. "You're pathetic," Marcus had said, his voice flat and emotionless as he pulled the car over to this godforsaken corner of the city. "I can't even look at you anymore. Get out." I'd begged. God, I'd begged like a dog, my hands gripping the dashboard as he reached across me to open the passenger door. The smell of his cologne, the one I'd bought him for our anniversary, filled my nostrils as he shoved my shoulder. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point clear. "Marcus, please, out." The suitcase had come flying after me, landing with a crack on the pavement. I'd watched our car, my car too, technically, though I'd never driven it, disappear around the corner, red taillights blurring through my tears until they vanished completely. That was an hour ago. Now I sat on the filthy curb, my jeans soaking up rainwater and oil stains, watching cars pass without stopping. People walked by with umbrellas, their eyes sliding over me like I was invisible. Maybe I was. Maybe I'd been invisible all along, and Marcus had just been the first person cruel enough to say it out loud. My phone was dead. My credit cards were in Marcus's name. The $47 in my wallet wouldn't get me far in a city where a cup of coffee cost $8. I had nowhere to go. My parents were dead. My only friend Claire had moved to Portland last year. I'd pushed everyone else away slowly, bit by bit, as Marcus had wanted. He liked me isolated, easier to control. The irony wasn't lost on me that I finally understood that now. Sitting in a puddle at a bus stop in the worst neighborhood in the city, a black SUV rolled past, slow and predatory, like a shark circling wounded prey. I pulled my knees closer to my chest, making myself smaller. The vehicle stopped 20 feet away, its brake lights glowing red in the downpour. My heart lurched into my throat. This was it. This was how I died. Dumped at a bus stop and murdered by some stranger who saw an easy target. The rear passenger door opened. A shoe emerged first. Expensive, black leather that looked like it cost more than my rent. Then a leg, clad in perfectly tailored charcoal pants with a knife-sharp crease. The man who stepped out moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for someone his size. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his black wool coat like he'd been poured into it. But it was his face that made my breath catch. Young, maybe early 30s, with sharp, aristocratic features that belonged on a marble statue in some European museum. Dark hair swept back from a high forehead, slightly damp from the rain. His jaw was clean-shaven and angular enough to cut glass. But his eyes, God, his eyes. Even from this distance, even through the rain and gathering darkness, they pinned me in place, dark, calculating, and utterly devoid of mercy. He didn't move toward me immediately. Instead, he stood beside the SUV, perfectly still, as if the rain didn't dare touch him. A second man emerged from the driver's side, thick-necked, wearing a suit that bulged slightly at the shoulder in a way that suggested a weapon. He opened an umbrella and held it over the first man's head without being asked. The first man's gaze never left me. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. I was frozen, a rabbit staring down a wolf, knowing that running would only trigger the chase. He moved then, walking toward me with measured steps. The bodyguard followed, keeping the umbrella perfectly positioned. As they approached, I caught the scent of expensive cologne. Nothing like Marcus's department store brand, but something dark and woody with notes of leather and smoke. It wrapped around me, invasive and inescapable. "You've been sitting here for 53 minutes. His voice was low, smooth, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Maybe Italian, maybe something else Mediterranean. Not a question. A statement of fact. I stared up at him, water streaming down my face, and managed to croak. "How do you—" "I know many things." He crouched down, bringing himself to eye level with me, and suddenly the rest of the world fell away. Up close, he was devastating. High cheekbones, a straight nose that had probably been broken once and set perfectly. Lips that would have looked feminine on anyone else but on him seemed dangerous. His eyes were the darkest brown I'd ever seen, almost black, and they studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're shivering," he observed, as if commenting on the weather. "I'm fine," I lied, my teeth chattering so hard I could barely form the words. His lips quirked. Not quite a smile, but something that suggested he found my defiance amusing. "You're sitting in a puddle in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the city at 9 o'clock at night. You are demonstrably not fine." "I don't need—" "Your husband." He cut me off, his tone sharpening. "Marcus Wheeler, 34, works at Brighton & Sons Insurance. Drives a 2019 Honda Accord. Left you here at 6:47 p.m. after draining your joint bank account this morning." The blood drained from my face. "How do you know that?" He ignored the question, his eyes traveling over my face with clinical precision. "You have nowhere to go, no money, no phone that works." His gaze dropped to my suitcase. And one broken wheel. Terror and confusion warred inside me. "Are you a cop?" This time he did smile, and it was the kind of smile that made predators nervous. "No, Piccola. I'm something much worse." Before I could process that, he stood in one fluid motion and extended his hand. "Come with me." I shook my head violently, pressing myself back against the bus stop pole. "I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't know you. You have two choices." His hand remained extended, steady as stone. "You can sit here and wait for the junkies who will be coming through in approximately—" He glanced at an expensive watch that caught the streetlight. 14 minutes, based on their usual schedule. "They will rob you, possibly assault you, and definitely leave you with nothing. Or—" He paused, letting the word hang in the air. "Or?" I whispered. "Or you trust that I mean you no harm tonight." His eyes locked with mine, and I felt the weight of some unspoken promise in them. "I'm offering you shelter, food, and safety. Nothing more." "Why?" The question burst out of me. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." Something flickered across his face, too fast to identify, but it looked almost like recognition. "Perhaps I see something in you worth preserving." The bodyguard shifted slightly, and I caught another glimpse of the bulge under his jacket. These weren't good men. Every instinct I had screamed that this stranger, with his expensive clothes and dangerous eyes, and knowledge of things he shouldn't know, was exactly the kind of person my mother had warned me about. But my mother was dead, and Marcus had left me with nothing. And somewhere in the distance, I heard voices, rough, male, laughing about something that made my stomach turn. The stranger's hand remained extended, patient and unwavering. I thought about the next few hours. About sitting here as the temperature dropped. About those voices getting closer. About the $47 that wouldn't even buy me a decent hotel room in this city. About dying alone in a puddle because my husband had finally admitted what I'd always suspected, that I was worthless, invisible, nothing. Or I could take this devil's hand and see where it led. My fingers were shaking when I reached up and placed my hand in his. His palm was warm, impossibly warm, and his fingers closed around mine with a gentleness that contradicted everything about his appearance. He pulled me to my feet effortlessly, and I stumbled slightly, my legs numb from sitting. He steadied me with a hand on my elbow, and I caught another wave of that cologne, smoke and leather and something darker, something that smelled like power. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Emma," I managed. "Emma Wheeler." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly at the last name, not for much longer, I suspect. He gestured to the bodyguard, who immediately retrieved my broken suitcase. "My name is Dante Caruso." The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it suggested it should have. He guided me toward the SUV, his hand still on my elbow, protective and possessive in equal measure. The bodyguard opened the rear door, and warm air spilled out, carrying with it the scent of leather seats and expensive cigars, I hesitated at the threshold. "Trust is earned, I know," Dante murmured near my ear, close enough that his breath ghosted across my skin. "But tonight, Emma Wheeler, you'll have to trust on faith." I climbed into the SUV. The door closed behind me with a solid, final thunk that sounded like a prison cell locking. Dante slid in beside me, maintaining a respectful distance, and the bodyguard took the driver's seat. The engine purred to life, a sound so smooth and quiet it barely registered. I sat in the corner, arms wrapped around myself, painfully aware of the puddle I was creating on the pristine leather seat. Dante pulled out his phone, one of 3 visible in various pockets, and typed something quickly. "Take us home, Marco," he said to the driver. "Home. Not the hotel or the safe house. Home." What had I just done? As if reading my thoughts, Dante turned to me, his dark eyes reflecting the passing streetlights. "You made the right choice, Piccola." His voice held absolute certainty. "Though you don't know it yet." The SUV rolled through the rain-slicked streets, leaving the bus stop and my old life behind. I watched the city blur past the tinted windows, every mile taking me further from everything I knew and deeper into something I couldn't name. Dante made another call, speaking in rapid Italian. I caught only a few words. "Donna, camera, subito," before he switched back to English. "You'll have your own room," he said, pocketing the phone. "Private bathroom. Whatever clothes you need will be provided. You're free to leave in the morning if you wish." "And if I want to leave now?" I tested. His smile was quick and sharp. "Then Marco will drive you anywhere you'd like to go, though I confess, I hope you'll stay." The way he said "stay" made it sound less like a request and more like a foregone conclusion. We drove for 20 more minutes, leaving the city center and heading into an area I'd only seen in magazines, where old money lived behind iron gates and security systems that cost more than most people's houses. The SUV turned down a private drive lined with ancient oak trees, their branches forming a tunnel overhead. Then I saw it. The house, no, the estate, rose out of the darkness like something from another era. 3 stories of pale stone and arched windows, lit from within by warm golden light. A fountain burbled in the circular drive, and even through the rain, I could see the meticulous landscaping, the marble steps, the massive oak door that looked like it belonged on a cathedral. "Where are we?" I breathed. "My home," Dante replied simply. Marco pulled up to the entrance, and another man appeared immediately with an umbrella. The door opened, and Dante stepped out, then turned back to offer me his hand again. I took it. He led me up the marble steps and through that imposing door, into an entrance hall that stole what little breath I had left. Black and white marble floors stretched toward a sweeping double staircase. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across walls hung with what looked like original oil paintings. The smell of beeswax and old money filled my nostrils. A woman appeared, 50s, dressed impeccably in a black dress, her silver hair pulled into a perfect bun. "Sir," she greeted Dante with a nod. "Mrs. Chen, this is Emma. She'll be staying with us. Please prepare the blue room and have Sophia bring up some clothes." His hand was still on my elbow, warm and commanding. "And draw a bath. She's half frozen." "Of course, sir." Mrs. Chen's eyes softened when she looked at me, though her expression remained professionally neutral. "This way, miss." I started to follow her, but Dante's fingers tightened slightly on my arm. I looked back at him, and something in his expression made my pulse quicken. "You're safe here," he said, each word weighted with meaning. "But Emma?" He leaned in slightly, and I caught that intoxicating scent again. "Don't try to run. Not tonight. The grounds are, well protected. It wasn't a threat. Not exactly. But it wasn't not a threat either." Then he released me, and I felt the absence of his touch like a physical thing. Mrs. Chen led me up the staircase, down a hallway lined with more paintings and antique furniture, and finally to a room that was bigger than the apartment I'd shared with Marcus. The bed alone could have fit 4 people, with a canopy of deep blue silk and enough pillows to drown in. French doors led to what looked like a balcony, though it was too dark to see much beyond the glass. "The bathroom is through there," Mrs. Chen said, gesturing to another door. "I'll bring clothes shortly." Is there anything specific you need, miss? My voice cracked. I don't understand what's happening. Her expression remained carefully blank. Mr. Caruso will explain everything in the morning. For tonight, you should rest. She paused at the door. You're safe here, miss. Whatever else you might fear, know that. Then she was gone, and I was alone in this impossible room, in this impossible house, with a man whose name I'd only learned 30 minutes ago. I walked to the bathroom in a daze. It was all marble and gold fixtures, with a tub large enough to swim in. Steam was already rising from the water Mrs. Chen must have started before I arrived. I caught sight of myself in the massive mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Mascara streaked down pale cheeks, hair plastered to my skull, clothes ruined and dripping. I looked like exactly what I was, a woman who'd been abandoned in the rain like garbage. But Dante Caruso hadn't looked at me like garbage. He'd looked at me like I was something precious, something worth protecting, something he intended to keep. I stripped off my wet clothes and sank into the bath, the hot water making my frozen skin scream. As warmth slowly returned to my body, I tried to make sense of the last hour. Who was Dante Caruso? How had he known about Marcus, about the bank account, about everything? Why had he been driving down that specific street at that specific time? And why? Why had he stopped for me, a nobody? A woman sitting in a puddle with nowhere to go. The water turned pink from where I'd scraped my knee during Marcus's shove. I watched the blood dissipate and thought about choices, about the moment I'd taken Dante's hand, about the way his fingers had closed around mine like he'd been waiting for that exact moment, like he'd known I would choose him. A knock startled me. Clothes, miss? A young woman's voice called through the door. Just leave them outside, please. When I finally emerged from the bath, wrapped in a towel that was softer than anything I'd ever owned, I found a pile of clothes on the bed. Not the cheap basics I'd expected, but expensive silk pajamas in deep emerald green, a cashmere robe, even new underwear in exactly my size. How did they know my size? I dressed with shaking hands and climbed into the enormous bed. The sheets smelled like lavender and something else. Something that reminded me of Dante's cologne, though fainter, as if the scent had seeped into the very walls of this house. I should have been terrified. I should have been planning my escape. Instead, I lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. Even though I knew with absolute certainty, that Dante Caruso was dangerous, that this house was a beautiful cage, that I'd traded one prison for another, perhaps even worse. But as sleep finally pulled me under, I thought about his hand on my elbow, about the way he'd said my name, about the promise in his eyes when he'd told me I was safe. And for the first time since Marcus had thrown me away, I believed that someone saw me, not as invisible, not as pathetic, not as nothing. Dante Caruso saw me, and whatever that meant, whatever danger came with being seen by a man like him, I was too broken to care. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow I would ask questions. Tomorrow I would understand. But tonight, I let the exhaustion win. I let myself sink into silk sheets in a blue room in a mansion that shouldn't exist, rescued by a man whose very name felt like a warning. Outside my door, I heard footsteps, measured, deliberate. They paused outside my room for several heartbeats before continuing down the hallway. He was checking on me. The thought should have frightened me. Instead, I pulled the covers closer and fell asleep to the sound of rain against the windows and the ghost of leather and smoke in the air. Sunlight woke me. Not the filtered gray light of my old apartment, but brilliant golden rays that poured through the French doors like liquid honey. For a disoriented moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back. Marcus, the bus stop, the rain, and Dante Caruso's dark eyes watching me like I was something he'd been searching for. I sat up slowly, my body aching in places I hadn't known existed. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. I'd slept for almost 12 hours. A soft knock interrupted my racing thoughts. "Come in," I called, my voice rough with sleep. Mrs. Chen entered carrying a tray laden with food, fresh fruit, pastries that smelled like butter and heaven, orange juice in a crystal glass, and coffee in a delicate porcelain cup. The scent alone made my stomach clench with hunger. "Good morning, Miss Emma. Mr. Caruso asked that you join him for lunch at noon. Until then, please eat and rest." She set the tray on a small table near the window. "There are clothes in the closet. Everything should fit." "Mrs. Chen, wait," I scrambled out of bed. "I need to understand what's happening. Who is Dante Caruso? Why am I here?" Her expression remained impassive, but something flickered in her eyes. Pity, maybe, or understanding. "Mr. Caruso will answer your questions himself, miss. It's not my place." She moved toward the door, then paused. "But I will say this. In the 15 years I've worked for him, I've never seen him bring anyone to this house. You should consider what that means." Then she was gone, leaving me alone with more questions than answers. I approached the closet with trepidation and pulled open the doors. Inside hung at least 20 outfits, designer labels I recognized from magazines but had never imagined wearing. Dresses, pants, blouses, even casual wear. All in my size. All clearly expensive enough to pay my rent for months. My hands trembled as I pulled out a simple outfit. Dark jeans that fit like they'd been tailored for my body, a cream cashmere sweater softer than clouds, and leather boots that probably cost more than my wedding dress had. When I checked the tags, my blood ran cold. They were all brand new. Purchased recently. How recently? I dressed mechanically, my mind spinning. Then I caught sight of myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The clothes transformed me into someone who belonged in a house like this. Someone who looked expensive, cared for, valued. The breakfast was equally disconcerting. Perfectly ripe strawberries, croissants that melted on my tongue, coffee so rich and smooth it made me want to weep. I ate standing by the window, looking out over manicured gardens that stretched toward a distant tree line. This wasn't just wealth. This was generational money, the kind that built empires and crushed anyone who got in the way. What had I walked into? At 11:45, Mrs. Chen returned. "Mr. Caruso is ready for you now." I followed her through the mansion's labyrinth of hallways, each more opulent than the last. We passed rooms filled with antiques and art that belonged in museums. Everything smelled of old money and secrets, beeswax, leather-bound books, and that underlying scent of smoke and leather that I was beginning to associate with Dante himself. We descended the main staircase and turned down another corridor, finally stopping at a set of double doors. Mrs. Chen knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a response. The room beyond stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, flooding the space with light. But it was the man standing by those windows who commanded all attention. Dante wore a charcoal suit that looked hand-stitched, his dark hair perfectly styled, one hand in his pocket while the other held a phone to his ear. He was speaking Italian again, his voice low and dangerous, each word clipped with barely restrained fury. "Non mi interessa cosa vuole. Se non può controllare i suoi uomini, troverò qualcuno che può." He paused, listening. "Bene. 24 ore. Non un minuto di più." He ended the call and turned, and the transformation was immediate. The cold fury vanished, replaced by something warmer, though no less intense. His eyes traveled over me slowly, taking in every detail of the clothes he'd somehow known would fit me perfectly. "Bella," he murmured, "the clothes suit you. How did you know my size?" The question burst out before I could stop it. A slight smile played at his lips. "I'm observant." He gestured to a table set for two near the windows. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." I remained frozen in the doorway. "I want answers first. Who are you? How did you know about Marcus? Why did you—" "Sit, Emma." Not a request. A command, delivered in that smooth voice that somehow made obedience seem inevitable. I sat. Immediately staff appeared, two young men in pristine uniforms who served lunch with military precision. Grilled fish with herbs I couldn't name. Roasted vegetables glistening with olive oil. Fresh bread still warm from the oven, and wine that probably cost more than my car. They worked in complete silence, then vanished as quickly as they'd appeared. Dante settled across from me, completely at ease in his obvious power. He poured wine for both of us, the dark red liquid catching the sunlight. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. I didn't touch mine. "Answer my questions." His smile widened, genuine amusement lighting his dark eyes. "You have courage, Piccola. I like that." He set down his glass and leaned back, studying me with that unsettling intensity. "My name is Dante Caruso. My family has business interests throughout the city. Import, export, real estate, various investments. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters right now." His tone hardened slightly. "What you need to understand is that I have resources, information networks. When something interests me, I learn everything about it. And I interest you." The words tasted like ash. "Yes. Simple, direct, undeniable. You've interested me for quite some time." The room tilted. "What does that mean?" He took a sip of wine, considering his words carefully. 3 months ago, I was dining at Bellissimo, the restaurant where you work as a server on weekends. You brought me my check. You smiled, thanked me for coming, and told me to have a pleasant evening. Do you remember? I searched my memory frantically. 3 months ago? I served hundreds of people. No, I didn't expect you would, but I remembered you. His eyes never left mine. You had a bruise on your wrist, badly covered with makeup. When you set down the check, your hand shook so badly the water glasses rattled. My breath caught. I did remember that night. Marcus had grabbed me that morning during an argument about money. I'd worn long sleeves and extra concealer, but apparently not enough. I watched you for the rest of the evening. Dante continued, his voice dropping lower. Watched how you flinched when anyone moved too quickly, how you apologized constantly, even when nothing was your fault. How you made yourself small, invisible, like you were trying to disappear into the walls. Why? I whispered. Why would you care about some random waitress? Something dark flickered across his face. Because I recognize broken things, Emma. I recognize what happens when someone's spirit is being slowly crushed. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and the intensity in his gaze made me want to look away, but I couldn't. I had you investigated, learned about Marcus Wheeler, about the joint account he'd been slowly draining, about the credit cards he'd maxed out in your name, about the way he isolated you from friends, from family, until you had nowhere to turn. Horror washed over me. You've been watching me for 3 months? Protecting you, he corrected. There's a difference. That's insane. I shot to my feet, the chair scraping against the floor. That's stalking. That's why you're alive. His words cut through my panic like a blade. He stood as well, moving around the table with predatory grace. Do you know what neighborhood that bus stop was in? Do you know what happens to women alone there after dark? I would have figured it out. You would have been robbed, assaulted, or dead within the hour. He was close now. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the absolute certainty in his eyes. I had Marco driving those streets for 2 hours, waiting. Because I knew. I knew Marcus Wheeler was a coward who would eventually throw you away like garbage, and I knew I would be there when he did. The truth hit me like a physical blow. You planned this. You've been planning this. Yes. The casual admission made my knees weak. Why? He reached up slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. His fingers were warm, gentle, completely at odds with everything he was telling me, because you deserve better than Marcus Wheeler. Better than bus stops in the rain. Better than making yourself invisible just to survive. You don't know me. But my voice was shaking. I know you better than you think. His hand lingered near my face, not quite touching, but close enough to feel his heat. I know you work 3 jobs to support a husband who hasn't worked in 2 years. I know you give your tips to the homeless man who sleeps outside your building. I know you check on Mrs. Patterson in 3B every morning because she has no family. I know you're kind, loyal, and far too forgiving of people who don't deserve your mercy. Each word was another invasion, another piece of privacy stripped away. Stop. I know Marcus cheated on you with your coworker Jennifer. I know he's been planning to leave for months. I know he took every penny you had and left you with nothing but a broken suitcase and shattered dignity. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "And I know that if I hadn't been there last night, you would have spent the night in that puddle, believing you deserved it." Tears burned my eyes. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing you're not willing to give." He stepped back, giving me space, though his eyes remained locked on mine. "I'm offering you a choice, Emma. Stay here. Let me provide for you. Let me give you the life you should have had." "In exchange for what?" A slight smile. "Your company. Your time. The pleasure of knowing you're safe and cared for. That's all." I didn't believe him. For now. At least he was honest. "I won't lie to you, Piccola. I want you here. I want to see you across the breakfast table, in my garden, in this house that's been empty too long, but I won't force you. The choice is yours. And if I leave?" Pain flickered across his features, quickly masked. "Then Marco will drive you anywhere you wish to go. I'll provide you with enough money to start over. You'll never hear from me again." He paused. "But you won't survive out there, Emma. Not without help." Marcus made sure of that. The truth of it settled in my bones like poison. He was right. I had nothing. No money, no home, no support system. Marcus had systematically destroyed every escape route, and I'd been too blind to see it happening. "This is insane," I whispered. "Perhaps." Dante returned to his seat, the perfect picture of casual elegance. "But sanity is overrated. Eat, Emma. You need your strength." I sank back into my chair on trembling legs. The food smelled divine, but my stomach roiled with confusion and fear, and something else. Something that felt dangerously like gratitude. "I don't understand why you're doing this," I said quietly. "Men like you don't rescue women from bus stops out of kindness." His expression grew distant, haunted. "My mother was left at a train station when I was 8 years old. My father, a powerful man, much like I am now, decided she was no longer useful. She had no money, no family in this country, nowhere to go." He swirled his wine, watching the light play through the dark liquid. "She survived, barely, but she was never the same. The woman I knew, the one who sang while cooking, who laughed easily, that woman died at that train station. What came back was a ghost. Understanding crashed over me. I reminded you of her. Yes." The word was raw. "When I saw you that night at the restaurant, with your forced smile and frightened eyes, I saw her. And I swore I would never let another woman end up broken and abandoned if I had the power to prevent it." The vulnerability in his admission was startling. This dangerous man, with his designer suits and obvious power, was showing me a wound that had never healed. "I'm sorry," I said softly, "about your mother. She died 5 years ago, cancer." He met my eyes. "She never forgave my father, and I never forgave him for what he did to her. Some betrayals are unforgivable." We sat in heavy silence, the weight of shared pain hanging between us. Finally, I picked up my fork and took a small bite of fish. It melted on my tongue, perfectly seasoned, exquisite. Dante watched me eat with satisfaction, as if feeding me brought him genuine pleasure. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you rest, recover, let yourself heal." He leaned back, completely relaxed. "Tomorrow, we'll discuss practicalities, divorcing Marcus, recovering your finances, whatever you need. But today you simply exist. No demands, no expectations." "And you?" I challenged. "What do you get out of this today?" His smile was slow and devastating. "I get to have lunch with a beautiful woman who deserves far better than what life has given her. That's enough." But the way he looked at me suggested it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. His eyes held hunger, not just physical, though that was present too, but something deeper. A possessiveness that made my skin prickle with awareness. I was in a beautiful cage, and the man who held the key was watching me with eyes that promised both salvation and ruin. The question was, which would I choose to believe? The afternoon dissolved into something dreamlike. After lunch, Dante excused himself for business. "Nothing you need to worry about, Piccola," leaving me to explore the mansion with Mrs. Chen as my silent guide. Each room revealed new layers of wealth and carefully curated beauty. a library with first editions behind glass, a music room with a grand piano that gleamed like polished obsidian, a conservatory filled with orchids that must have cost thousands to maintain, but it was the garden that captured me. I stepped through French doors onto a stone terrace and found myself in paradise. Manicured hedges formed intricate patterns around burbling fountains. Rose bushes climbed trellises heavy with late-season blooms. Stone paths wound through carefully planned chaos. Wildflowers mixed with exotic specimens I couldn't name. The air smelled of jasmine and earth and possibility. For the first time since Marcus had shoved me from the car, I felt like I could breathe. I walked until I reached a gazebo tucked into a corner where the garden met the tree line. White wisteria draped the structure, creating a canopy of delicate purple flowers. A bench inside offered a perfect view of the entire estate. I sank onto it, letting the afternoon sun warm my face, and tried to process the last 24 hours. A man I didn't know had been watching me for 3 months. He'd learned everything about my life. The good, the bad, the shameful parts I'd hidden even from myself. He'd anticipated my husband's betrayal and positioned himself to be my savior. Now I was living in his mansion, wearing clothes he'd provided, eating food from his table. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt seen. For the first time in years, someone looked at me and saw worth. Not utility, not convenience, not something to be tolerated until better options appeared. Dante Caruso looked at me like I mattered. The sound of footsteps on gravel pulled me from my thoughts. I tensed, expecting Mrs. Chen or one of the silent staff members, but it was Dante who appeared around the hedge, now dressed more casually in dark slacks and a white shirt, with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Somehow, he looked even more dangerous this way, less polished businessman, more predator at rest. I thought I might find you here. He approached slowly, giving me space. My mother loved this spot. She planted those wisteria herself. It's beautiful, I said honestly. May I? He gestured to the bench. I nodded, and he sat beside me, maintaining a respectful distance. For several moments, we simply existed in comfortable silence, watching butterflies dance among the roses. I spoke with my lawyer, he said finally. He can begin divorce proceedings immediately. Marcus will contest nothing. I'll make sure of it. How? The question came out sharper than intended. His smile was cold. Marcus Wheeler has made many poor choices beyond abandoning his wife. Credit card fraud, embezzlement from his previous employer, tax evasion. Should any of these facts become known to the proper authorities, he'd face serious prison time. Ice slid down my spine. You're blackmailing him. I'm ensuring your freedom. His tone suggested he saw no difference. Unless you'd prefer to remain legally bound to a man who threw you away. No. The word escaped before I could consider it. No, I want to be free of him. Then it's done. Within 6 weeks, you'll be Emma Clark again. He turned to face me fully. What will you do with that freedom? The question hung in the jasmine-scented air. What would I do? Before Marcus, I'd had dreams. Small ones, but mine. I'd wanted to finish my degree, maybe open a small bookshop someday. Travel, even if just to see the ocean. But Marcus had methodically crushed each dream until I'd stopped having them altogether. I don't know, I admitted. I haven't thought about the future in so long. Then think about it now. His voice softened. Here, you have time, space. No one demanding things from you, taking from you, making you small. What does Emma Clark want? The intensity of his focus made my chest tight. Why does it matter to you? Because you matter to me. Simple. Direct. Devastating. You don't know me, I protested weakly. I know enough. He shifted slightly closer, and suddenly I was acutely aware of his presence. The heat radiating from his body, the scent of his cologne mixing with garden flowers, the way his dark eyes caught the afternoon light. I know you've survived things that would have broken most people. I know you're stronger than you believe, and I know that given the chance, you could be extraordinary. I'm not extraordinary, I'm just... Don't. His hand came up to cup my chin, gentle but firm, forcing me to meet his eyes. Don't diminish yourself. Not here. Not with me. Whatever lies Marcus told you, whatever he made you believe about your worth, those were his failures, not yours. His thumb brushed my lower lip, and electricity shot through me, this close. I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could count his individual eyelashes, could feel the controlled power thrumming beneath his careful gentleness. "Dante," I whispered, though I didn't know what I was asking for. "Tell me to stop." His voice had dropped to barely above a murmur. "Tell me I'm moving too fast, that you need space, and I'll give it to you." "But Emma..." His thumb traced my jawline, leaving fire in its wake. "Tell me you don't feel this between us, and I'll call you a liar." I should have pulled away, should have remembered that this man was dangerous, that he'd orchestrated my rescue like a chess move, that everything about this situation screamed warning, but all I could focus on was the way he touched me, like I was precious, fragile, something to be treasured rather than tolerated. Marcus had never touched me like this. Not even in the beginning, when I'd still believed in fairy tales and happy endings. "I don't understand what's happening," I admitted. "Neither do I." His honesty startled me. "I've had 3 months to prepare for meeting you properly, but nothing prepared me for having you actually here, for watching you sleep in my guest room, for seeing you in my garden, with sunlight in your hair, looking like you finally belong somewhere. I don't belong here. This isn't my world. It could be." His hand slid from my face to my neck, fingers tangling gently in my hair. "If you wanted it, if you gave us a chance to see what this could become." "This?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "This connection, this pull between us that defies logic." He leaned closer, his breath ghosting across my lips. "I've never wanted to protect something as much as I want to protect you. I've never felt so certain that someone was meant to be mine, yours." The word should have sounded like captivity. Instead, it sounded like salvation. Mine to care for, mine to shelter, mine to... The sharp ring of his phone shattered the moment. Dante cursed in Italian, pulling away to check the screen. Whatever he saw there made his expression harden into something cold and lethal. "I need to take this." He stood abruptly. "Stay in the garden. Marco is nearby if you need anything. I'll find you when I'm finished." Then he was striding back toward the house, already barking orders in Italian to whoever had called. I watched him disappear, my skin still tingling where he'd touched me, my mind reeling from how close we'd come to... What? A kiss? More? I pressed my fingers to my lips, trying to calm my racing pulse. This was madness. I'd been in this house for less than 24 hours, and already I was falling under Dante Caruso's spell. Already I was starting to forget that he was dangerous, that he'd manipulated my rescue, that men with his kind of power didn't do things out of kindness, but God help me. I wanted to forget. I wanted to believe in the fairy tale he was offering, the beautiful house, the gentle touches, the promise of being treasured instead of tolerated. I spent the next hour walking through the gardens, trying to clear my head. Eventually, I found myself back at the mansion as dusk painted the sky in shades of purple and gold. Inside, I could hear raised voices, Dante's, sharp and commanding, cutting through the quiet. I followed the sound to a partially open door down a corridor I hadn't explored yet. Through the gap, I could see an office, all dark wood and leather, dominated by a massive desk. Dante stood behind it, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand pressed flat against the desk's surface like he was physically restraining himself from violence. Non accetto scuse. Vuoi che la situazione venga risolta? Oggi. He listened for a moment, then exploded. Se non puoi gestire questo, troverò qualcuno che può. Hai 24 ore. He slammed the phone down and stood there, chest heaving, fury rolling off him in waves. This was the real Dante Caruso, not the careful gentleman who'd served me lunch, but something far more dangerous. A man used to absolute obedience, who crushed anyone who failed him. I must have made a sound because his head snapped toward the door. Our eyes met, and I saw him consciously smooth the rage from his features, tucking it away behind the careful mask. Emma. He came around the desk. I didn't realize you were there. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. You're not intruding. This is your home now, too. He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfect styling. Business complications, nothing for you to concern yourself with. But I'd seen behind the curtain now. I'd glimpsed the darkness he usually kept hidden. What do you do exactly? I asked. Your business. What is it really? His jaw tightened. Import, export, various investments, as I said. That's not the whole truth. He studied me for a long moment, clearly debating how much to reveal. Finally, he sighed. My family has been in certain industries for generations. We provide services, protection. We facilitate transactions that require discretion. We have influence in matters where official channels prove inadequate. Understanding dawned slowly. You're careful with labels, Piccola. His voice carried warning. Labels attract attention. What matters is this. I am powerful. I am wealthy. And I am very, very good at protecting what's mine. And I'm yours now? The question came out steadier than I felt. He moved closer, that predatory grace back in full force. You were mine the moment you took my hand last night. You just haven't accepted it yet. That's insane. Is it? He was close enough to touch now. You're wearing clothes I provided, sleeping in my house, eating my food. You've already allowed me to initiate your divorce, to manage your finances, to make decisions about your future. At what point, Emma, do you stop pretending you haven't already chosen to be mine? The truth of it struck like lightning. He was right. Every choice I'd made since taking his hand had been another step deeper into his world. Another thread of dependence woven around me. I didn't have options, I protested. You always have options. You chose me. You chose safety over uncertainty, comfort over struggle. His hand came up to cup my face again, and despite everything, I leaned into his touch. You chose to trust a dangerous man because something in you recognized that I would never hurt you, that I would burn the world down before I let anyone harm you again. Why? The question was barely a breath. Why me? Because the moment I saw you trying to disappear into the walls of that restaurant, I recognized a kindred spirit. His thumb traced my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Because you're broken in the same places I am. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth keeping. This is happening too fast, I know. He pressed his forehead to mine, and the intimacy of the gesture made my breath catch. But time is a luxury I don't have. The world I live in doesn't allow for slow courtships and gentle persuasion. When I want something, I take it. And I want you, Emma Clark. I want you safe in my house, eating at my table, sleeping under my protection. I want to wake up knowing you're here, that you're mine, that no one will ever throw you away again. That sounds like obsession. Perhaps it is. He pulled back just enough to look into my eyes. Does that frighten you? It should have. Every rational part of my brain screamed warnings, but beneath the fear was something else, something warm and dangerous and intoxicating. For the first time in my life, someone wanted me with an intensity that couldn't be denied or diminished. Someone looked at me and saw not a burden or a convenience, but something precious enough to obsess over. Yes, I admitted. It terrifies me. Good. His smile was dark and possessive. Fear means you're paying attention. Fear means you understand exactly what you're getting into. His hands framed my face, holding me captive with gentleness and certainty. I won't pretend to be something I'm not, Piccola. I'm dangerous. I'm possessive. When something belongs to me, I protect it with everything I have. And I will never, ever let you go. The promise hung between us, heavy with meaning. This was my last chance to run. My last opportunity to choose safety over this beautiful, terrifying captivity. But as I stood there, cradled in the hands of a man who'd orchestrated my rescue and was now claiming ownership of my future, I realized something that should have horrified me. I didn't want to run. For better or worse, I was exactly where I wanted to be. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of carefully constructed normalcy that felt anything but normal. Dante's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Victoria, who wore power suits like armor, handled my divorce with ruthless efficiency. Marcus signed every paper without protest. which told me everything I needed to know about what Dante had threatened him with. I should have felt guilty about the coercion. I didn't. My days developed a rhythm. Mornings in the garden with coffee and books from Dante's extensive library. Afternoons exploring the estate or the small art studio Mrs. Chen had shown me, stocked with supplies I hadn't touched in years. Evenings were reserved for Dante. Dinners that stretched for hours. Conversations that ranged from literature to philosophy to the carefully edited stories of our pasts. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give, but his presence was constant, unavoidable. The way he watched me across the dinner table. The casual touches that lingered, a hand at the small of my back, fingers brushing mine when passing a wine glass. The way he said my name, like it was something sacred. I was falling, and we both knew it. But the house held secrets. I'd hear Dante's voice late at night, sharp with authority, speaking rapid Italian into one of his many phones. Men in expensive suits would arrive for meetings in his office, and the doors would close with an ominous finality. Marco and the other security personnel moved through the house like silent shadows, always watching, always present. I pretended not to notice. It was easier that way. On a Thursday afternoon, everything changed. I was in the library, curled in a leather chair with a first edition of Wuthering Heights, when shouting erupted from somewhere below, not just raised voices, genuine fury, the kind that preceded violence. I froze, the book forgotten, as the sounds grew closer. Then Dante's office door slammed open hard enough that I heard it from 2 floors up. "You don't have the authority!" a man's voice, thick with accent and rage. "Antonio should be making these decisions, not you. Antonio is in prison because of his incompetence." Dante's voice was cold, lethal. "I'm in charge now. What I say is law. You're too young, too reckless. This obsession with the girl, it makes you weak." The world stopped. "Careful, Lorenzo." Danger dripped from every syllable. "You're questioning my judgment. That's a mistake you won't make twice. Everyone sees it. You bring some nobody into your home, dress her up like a doll, spend your time playing house while the Russo family moves against us. You're distracted, Dante, vulnerable, and that puts all of us at risk." My hands gripped the book so hard my knuckles turned white. This was the world Dante had kept hidden. The violence, the power struggles, the reality of what he truly was. "Emma is not your concern." Each word was enunciated with precision. "She's under my protection. Anyone who threatens her, who even looks at her wrong, will discover exactly how reckless I can be. You're willing to start a war over some woman? I'm willing to end one." A pause, heavy with meaning. "The Russos are already moving. They've been consolidating power for months. Whether Emma was here or not, this confrontation was inevitable. But yes, Lorenzo, if they touch her, if they so much as breathe in her direction, I will burn their entire organization to the ground and salt the earth where it stood." Silence fell, broken only by my thundering heartbeat. "Get out," Dante finally said, "and spread the word. Emma Clark is mine. She is sacrosanct. Anyone who forgets that will answer to me personally." Footsteps retreated, followed by the slam of a door. I sat paralyzed, processing what I'd heard. The Russo family. Wars. Protection that came with threats of annihilation. I was in deeper than I'd imagined. That evening, Dante was late to dinner. When he finally appeared, his tie was loose, exhaustion evident in the tightness around his eyes. But when he saw me waiting at the table, something in his expression softened. "I'm sorry," he said, pouring himself a generous measure of whiskey. "Business kept me longer than expected." I heard the argument. No point in pretending otherwise. His hand stilled on the glass. "How much?" "Enough." I met his eyes across the table. "Enough to understand that I've put you in danger. That your people think I'm a weakness." He drained the whiskey in one swallow and crossed to where I sat, pulling out the chair beside me instead of taking his usual place across the table. When he reached for my hand, I let him take it. "You're not a weakness, Emma. You're the only real thing I have." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "Everything else is power plays and politics, manipulation and violence. But you, when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to want something beyond empire building. What do you want? I whispered. You. Just you. He brought my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. Safe. Happy. Mine. The Russo family is my problem, not yours. His jaw tightened. There are things happening in my world right now, conflicts that were brewing long before you arrived, but I need you to trust me, Piccola. Trust that I will keep you safe no matter what comes. How can you promise that? Because I've already prepared for every contingency. This house is fortress secure. Marco and my men are the best in the business. And anyone foolish enough to come after you will learn why my family has held power for 3 generations. His eyes held that cold fury I'd glimpsed before. I am very, very good at protecting what's mine. There was that word again. Mine. It should have chafed. Should have made me rebel against the possessiveness. Instead, it wrapped around me like a blanket. Warm, secure, undeniable. I don't want to be the reason you get hurt, I said quietly. Then don't leave. His free hand came up to cup my face. That's the only thing that could truly hurt me now. Waking up to find you gone, coming home to an empty house. Living without... He cut himself off, jaw working. Without what? Without the woman I'm falling in love with. The words hung between us, too heavy to ignore. My breath caught, heart hammering against my ribs. It was too soon, too fast, too dangerous. Everything about this was impossible. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw truth. Raw, unvarnished, terrifying truth. Dante? You don't have to say it back. I know it's soon. I know I'm asking too much, too fast. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. But I need you to understand what you mean to me. Need you to know that this isn't some game or passing fascination. When I look at you, I see my future, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you in it. I should have been afraid, should have recognized the danger in such intensity, but all I felt was the echo of something unfurling in my own chest, something that had been dead for so long I'd forgotten it could exist, hope. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. How to let myself feel again. Marcus broke something in me, then we'll fix it together. He pulled me to my feet and into his arms, and for the first time, I let myself sink into his embrace fully. He was solid, warm, safe in ways that defied logic. His scent surrounded me, leather and smoke and something uniquely him. Take your time, Emma. Heal. Grow. Become whoever you're meant to be. I'll be here, keeping the monsters at bay. I pressed my face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong. Steady. Sure. What if I can't be what you need? His laugh was soft, felt rather than heard. You already are. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. You already are. We stood like that for long minutes, wrapped in each other while the world outside continued its dangerous dance. Somewhere in the city, enemies plotted. Allies questioned. Power shifted like tides. But in this moment, in this embrace, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. Even knowing the danger, even understanding the stakes, even recognizing that loving Dante Caruso meant entering a world of violence and shadows, I was exactly where I wanted to be. His arms tightened around me, and I realized with startling clarity that I wasn't the only one seeking shelter. He held me like I was precious, yes, but also like I was his anchor, like I kept him tethered to something human, in a world that demanded ruthlessness. We saved each other, I thought. He rescued me from a bus stop, and I rescued him from becoming nothing but power and violence. Stay with me tonight, he murmured against my hair. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready for. Just stay. Let me hold you. Let me know you're safe. Every rational thought screamed warnings. But my heart, my broken, slowly healing heart, knew what it wanted. Okay, I whispered. His breath released in a rush, and I felt the tension drain from his body. That night, thank you. I fell asleep in Dante Caruso's arms, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my back. Outside, Threats gathered and enemies plotted, but inside this fortress, wrapped in the arms of a dangerous man who loved me with terrifying intensity, I felt safer than I ever had in my entire life. The irony wasn't lost on me. Neither was the truth. I was falling in love with him, too. The attack came on a Tuesday. I was in the garden, sketching roses in the afternoon sun, when the first gunshot shattered the peace. The sound cracked through the air like thunder, followed immediately by shouting and the screech of tires on gravel. Marco appeared from nowhere, grabbing my arm with bruising force. "Inside, now." He dragged me toward the house as more gunshots erupted. I caught glimpses, black SUVs crashing through the gates, men in dark clothes spilling out with weapons raised. Dante's security team returning fire from strategic positions around the estate. War had come to our doorstep. Marco shoved me through the French doors and practically threw me at Mrs. Chen, who stood pale but composed in the entrance hall. "Take her to the safe room. Lock it. Don't open for anyone but me or Mr. Caruso." Then he was gone, weapon drawn, disappearing back into the chaos. Mrs. Chen gripped my hand and pulled me through the mansion at a run. We went down corridors I'd never seen, through a hidden door behind a bookcase, down stone stairs that descended into darkness. My ears rang from the gunfire. My heart threatened to burst from my chest. Dante, where was Dante? The safe room was exactly what it sounded like. A windowless concrete bunker equipped with monitors showing security feeds from around the estate. Mrs. Chen locked the heavy steel door behind us with a series of codes and biometric scans. On the screens, I watched the battle unfold in grainy black and white. Dante's men held strategic positions, their training evident in every coordinated movement. But the attackers, the Russos, kept coming, wave after wave. I searched frantically through the camera feeds for Dante. There. My breath caught. He stood on the front steps, Marco and 3 other men flanking him, facing down a group of attackers who'd broken through the first line of defense. Even through the poor quality footage, Dante's authority was unmistakable. He was speaking, gesturing, negotiating even as bullets flew around him. "He's going to get himself killed," I whispered. Mrs. Chen's hand found mine, squeezing tight. "Mr. Caruso has survived worse. He knows what he's doing." But I couldn't look away from the screen. Couldn't stop imagining those bullets finding him. Couldn't bear the thought of losing him now, when I'd finally admitted, at least to myself, that I loved him. The standoff on the steps lasted 3 eternal minutes, then Dante made a sharp gesture, and his men opened fire with devastating precision. The attackers fell, or retreated. Dante remained standing, untouched, death personified in a 3-piece suit. The battle lasted 20 more minutes, though it felt like hours. Finally, sirens wailed in the distance. Police, responding to reports of gunfire in this wealthy neighborhood. The remaining attackers fled, leaving behind bodies and blood and shattered peace. On the monitors, I watched Dante speak briefly with someone, probably giving orders about cleanup, damage control, the 1,000 details that came with surviving an assassination attempt. Then he turned and walked back into the house, his stride purposeful and unhurried, as if he hadn't just orchestrated a small war on his front lawn. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Mrs. Chen tensed, moving to stand between me and the door. But the coded knock that followed made her shoulders sag with relief. "It's Mr. Caruso." She opened the door, and Dante filled the frame. His suit jacket was gone, shirt torn and spotted with blood. Whether his or someone else's, I couldn't tell. His hair was disheveled, face streaked with dirt and gunpowder residue. But his eyes, when they found me, were blazing with relief and fury, and something that looked like fear. "Emma." I launched myself at him before conscious thought caught up. His arms closed around me immediately, crushing me against his chest. He was shaking. This powerful, dangerous man was shaking as he held me. "You're safe," he murmured into my hair, repeating it like a prayer. "You're safe. Thank God you're safe. You could have died." My voice broke. "You stood there in the open. I had to end it quickly. Had to show them that attacking my home, threatening what's mine, would cost them everything." He pulled back just enough to frame my face with his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Are you hurt? Did anyone—" "I'm fine. Marco got me inside before I couldn't finish. The reality of what had just happened was crashing down on me. Dante, they came for you. Because of your work, your enemies. No. His voice was steel. They came for you, Piccola. The Russos thought taking you would cripple me. They thought I'd surrender my territory, my power, to keep you safe. His smile was savage. They were right about one thing. I would burn my entire empire to keep you safe. But they were wrong if they thought I'd let them take you in the first place. People died today. The weight of it pressed down on me. Because of me. Because of greed and stupidity. And men who thought they could take what's mine. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my nose, frantic, desperate touches. This isn't your fault. This is the world I live in, the consequences of the choices I've made long before you existed in my life. But Emma... His eyes bored into mine. This changes things. The Russos know about you now. They'll try again. Smarter next time. Which means I need to know right now whether you're staying.
What?
Are you staying? He was still holding my face, his thumbs stroking my cheekbones. Because if you want out, I'll arrange it. New identity, new city, enough money to start over somewhere safe. I'll let you go if that's what you need. But if you stay, if you choose this life, choose me, then we do this properly. My heart hammered. What does that mean? It means you become untouchable. It means everyone in my world knows that harming you means death. It means... He took a shaking breath. It means you marry me. The world tilted. Dante, I know it's fast. I know I'm asking everything from you, but in my world, there's only one protection stronger than being under my care. Being my wife. My family. Blood of my blood. His eyes held mine, fierce and desperate and full of love. Marry me, Emma. Let me give you my name, my protection, everything I have. Let me keep you safe for the rest of our lives. That's insane, I whispered. But my heart was racing for entirely different reasons now. Yes. His smile was crooked, almost boyish. Completely insane, but I love you. I've loved you since you tried to disappear into the walls of that restaurant. I loved you when you were shivering in the rain. I loved you every morning watching you drink coffee in my garden. And I'll love you every day for the rest of my life if you'll let me. Tears blurred my vision. I barely know you. You know what matters. You know I'll protect you. You know I'll never abandon you. You know that when I look at you, I see home. His voice cracked. Say yes, Piccola. Choose this life. Choose me. Everything rational screamed that this was madness. I'd known him less than a month. He was dangerous, possessive, lived in a world of violence and blood. Marrying him meant accepting all of it. The enemies, the danger, the beautiful cage of his protection.